Hello, welcome to 2023, the Motherhood Channel. I'm Quinne Brown Huffman,
And
and sitting in the privileged position to chat with
is Tonya Meeks. And then I got
and
Sparrow in the
Sparrow.
background with a little tidbit here and there too. We're so glad to
It's
be here.
amazing.
Back.
2023, it's happening. Doesn't really feel real yet. So there's a huge pause that I think astrologically has been spoken into, but even before that, I was like, whoa, I am, I guess, ready to be ready, but I don't know for what. But let's get real, my darling sister. Let's just keep it real, because that's what this channel is about.
That's the truth
It's
of who
about
we both are, right? Is that kind of intensity of just being
exactly.
real. Yeah. Yeah. So
And
what's real for
it's
you, like right now in the heart of it? We should just both just spill the beans.
okay. I go
Never used
first.
that analogy
What's
before,
real?
but
I think I'm really feeling the pause and the pivot that my life is in and offering me at the same time. So really feeling how uncomfortable I actually am in the pause, as much as I can see it and speak into it and like embrace it to a certain, I don't know, do I pretend? I am just uncomfortable at the moment. I'm like, come on, what's next? Let
well, you
me
want to
see it.
know what path is your next place that you're going to forge ahead.
Yes, and it's an interesting thing because it's not, I've had this moment in my life often because I have pivoted much in my life.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's a pretty
Quite
common.
specifically. So it's not unfamiliar to me. I think what I want to speak into is doing it as a mother once again. And that I've done also, but I have now children at a very aware age. So Charlotte and Laura are both 8 and 8, so they're very aware and they can speak their minds and they have this beautiful self experience of themselves, but their eyes are on me always. And my dad always said, don't do what I do what I say, knowing that he means the opposite, because no one does what we say. It's all about modeling. It's all about what they see, and then choosing what I want to model and what I want to have them experience me as is suddenly a very real thing, which I don't know if I really ever truthfully was very aware of. That was really important to me. Maybe it is.
I don't know. I think that's, oh wow, that's what was making that fizzing sound, is the water's coming out. Get the teal water. Hi everybody. We're getting a teal water bottle right now because the pink one is leaking. Go grab the pink one, okay? The teal one.
Okay. So that's the thing, living in close proximity with our little ones. There you go. You just got to do that they are listening and watching and with us, and it's a thing. But I am feeling really privileged and also overwhelmed by privilege. It's an interesting thing. I'll keep going because I think Sparrow needs a minute. But yes, everyone. I mean, where are you in your life? I think this pause is real for the majority of us, whether we recognize it or not. Mercury and retrograde, Mars coming out of its whatever situation. I don't get all of it, but I feel all of it.
Well, I think we're all feeling it so intensely. I was thinking about, because before we do these, we talk about, I was like, oh, the theme is pivot. Like, how often have we pivoted in our lives? And then as parents, the pivot involves like a little tribe. We're not just pivoting ourselves. Does that make sense? So it's an interesting piece. And it's interesting because I have I've been sober for 19 years. So I have my sobriety birthday today. And I was thinking about, like, that point was a huge pivot. Does that make sense? But it's been so long that it doesn't feel, not that it doesn't feel significant, it always feels significant, but there's like a lifetime has happened between this and that. Does that make sense? Like now there's whole new
Absolutely.
things, and thinking about all the pieces that have pivoted. Does that make sense? Like I was telling you this before, the sparrow had asked, I did one woman shows for years, and when he was little he was part of them and he saw clip, but he was little, so now he's 6, and he was asking who this picture of Dwayne, who sings, I've mentioned him before on here, who does like the songs 365 days, where I came up with like we should do that. And he was like, who is he? And we've been watching all these like Hallmark specials where there's like a guy and a girl and then there's a love, and basically they meet, they fall in love, they get married, they kiss at the end. It's like very but something about it is very comforting to him. Anyways, so I could tell he was like, who's that? Like it's a guy. And I was like, oh no, it's Dwayne. And he saying he was in my performance program, blah blah blah. So I was like, oh, I'll show him a little clip. And when I got ready to show the clip, I was like, there's a lot in this little 5-minute clip. It's like a whole different lifetime of who I was, who I'm representing. It just was a really interesting thing to see him watch me do something. And he's like, oh, you're really funny. But he, like the content, he was just like, oh, I don't like any of this, which is true. You wouldn't, it's not meant for, yeah, I think going with that is yeah, I don't know where I'm going with all that, but just all the pivot, all the parts of ourselves. What made me think of that is you're saying like your girls are watching you and you're hyper aware of, they're witnessing your journey and where you're going and what you're becoming. And so I think as moms and as conscious moms that are intuitive, it's like how we're maybe more aware of those parts. Does that make sense?
Yes. And
But
so
then it
that's
doesn't make it less like, go ahead, sorry.
yeah. No, I just want to take you there to the next piece of, we are aware on a certain level of certain things with a specific kind of language. Well, you have your language, I have mine. I think every mother has her
Totally.
belief system, her value system, her language that she navigates this motherhood, the hood of it. And I think that's the next piece. So often, and if you want to go there,
I can, yeah, I know I detoured. I was like, we'll focus on you. I'll do what I'm really good at.
Yeah, no, I know you did that to gather yourself, and that's okay. But I think it's a really relevant piece right now for a lot of parents, because I personally feel it's generational. That it's not just individuals struggling or having to be with a specific way that our children are navigating the world that has been created. So we all have language around that. The system that we live in, the structure that has been created with schools and healthcare and all of it, has words and language and treatments and things that, is so specific.
Yeah, totally.
Now, every mother has to come in with knowing her child so specifically, from her point of view, from your point of view, from your language, from your value system, and somewhere the two things have to meet. So I'm handing it over. How do they meet? It's really
so I think that there's a piece for me, and what I had shared about, and I'm like, I remember as a kid when I would cry, I would have like cry face, and I'd be like, I'm not going to school, Mom. My face is a cry face. Like right now, I've been crying. I was like, I have cry face. If you guys want to tune in to YouTube and look at the cry face.
Anyway, beautiful in that vulnerability. You are beautiful.
I think, yeah, I've always been an emotionally connected being. So I think what's coming up for me as a parent is that I'm highly intuitive. I have a son that's like an empath, super sweet, special soul. But what we're coming up against is like, if you look at Western labels, and I'm a depth psychotherapist, so I'm a licensed therapist and I'm a creative and intuitive, and yet I have a son now that may have, like a spectrum diagnosis. There may be some like anxiety, OCD. So I can come at it in two different lenses. I can come at it from my therapy hat and I can come at it from my spiritual side. But at the same time, it's bumping up against of how do I navigate that and make peace with, you know, choosing that path and being vulnerable about this? Does that make sense? Like, it's kind of funny, like thinking about, like I remember before I got sober, I was in like, I've always sought out therapy and sought to like resolve things for myself since high school. And so I was in a therapy group, and there was another guy who needed addiction support. And I was very focused on helping him. I was going to go to meetings with him. Meanwhile, I had my own demons I was fighting. But I was like, you know, I have an Al-Anon issue, people. Like, you know what I mean? And I do. And that is very true.
You have a what issue? I missed that. You have a what issue?
Al-Anon. So it's like if you've grown up with like alcoholism in your system, you'll be like a caretaker to others. And that will be, you'll find another alcoholic to fall in love with. You will play the role of caretaker, which is a very strong archetype for me. But I was missing the piece that I needed to land in AA. Like missed, I mean, I knew it, but there was a part of me that didn't want to land. And so I feel like I'm in a new pivot of like, do I really want to acknowledge that, yes, I have this brilliant son that's magical, and I'm a therapist, and maybe I'm not like pathologizing something just because I'm a therapist, but truly there's probably just like a straight up Western diagnosis. And that's like intense to land with and figure out the best way to navigate that. And I'm,
Yeah.
you know, it's like there's been no shame over my addiction. I've always been very open about it, but there is something different as a mom to then go to moms and be like, oh yeah, I'm in recovery, even if it's 19 years where it's not even, I have no desire, there's no struggle with that, but there's still, there's layers as a mom that it changes my bold, ripping it open, just showing everything, because then I'm protective of my child and people's perceptions of him. You know, then I'm exposing his, it's just different. There's different pieces in there. And he's, I think intrinsically will be a far more private soul than me, you know, like far more like, so it's
No,
just
that
interesting.
I hear something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
You go.
I hear you just you say to kind of layer that out a little bit, is when it's different when we're speaking for ourselves and it's just us coming back to this little tribe pivoting and how we speak into the reality of it. And I hear you say, you coming out and suddenly speaking about your recovery, how he's then being viewed in that. So it's because that we are part of their stories as much as they are part of our stories.
Totally.
It's not a one-way street. It is a two-way. We're constantly in part of each other's stories. We're not, it's not just linear. There's nothing linear here. And that is really interesting.
And then to expose, like, let's just say he does have a spectrum diagnosis. Is he going to be private about that in the world? And here I am like, hi, world. Tonya Meeks here, son. You know, like, there's just different, if that's a true diagnosis, you know, like how people choose to navigate. There are people who are sober that really share that just in meetings. It's a very private, sacred thing, and they're not public about it. Like, does that make sense? So there is different journeys with all of these paths that people choose to take. And I think I've always been very, just very open. The fact that I had him with the sperm, I've just always been very transparent about things that some people keep private, and that this is something you don't share publicly. Like, I've always been just very, yeah. So it's interesting. I think.
So now I hear you wondering, is he going to resent that, or is he going to appreciate it, depending on how private he is or not?
Totally. So I need to be, I was like, is he going to be in therapy later being like, my mom got on her podcast and told everybody I was sex, you know, and he could, you know, like I think about like,
very well could,
you know, like the things that I was upset with my mom that I still remember in every vein in my body, even though I've done lots of work, you know, that you remember in your cells. So I think for the audience, just to realize that as parents, like it's a journey where we're constantly pivoting, and you're pivoting within a system of other humans that are doing it different than you, and to be able to be vulnerable and be like, okay, maybe like you're saying, like, I don't know what path the forest is taking me on. I don't know if I'm going up and I'm going to see the ocean, or if you're going to go on the flat part and take the tourist route. You know, you don't know, like, and I don't know how far Western I am going to go with navigating. But I'm also at a spot like I was in sobriety where I'm like, okay, I'll try the traditional, like, I don't need to figure out the path. Like, you tell me to do this path, I'll try all your ABA there, occupate. I'll just do all that because I've done all my naturopath healer. Like, I've done it all. I've done both. So I'll just do both wings of it and see what sticks and what serves that. But I think that that can be a really what serves Sparrow, what serves his highest good. And so I think, yeah, it's just kind of, I always think it's interesting in my life. I'm like, hi, I'm doing a motherhood podcast. I'm a psychotherapist, I'm an artist. And meanwhile, I have, like, you know, a really intense thing happening at the home front that I haven't figured out. I don't have the beginning, middle, and end of the story. I'm in the, you know, I said this last night to some a client I'm working, I said, oh, you're in the soup. And they hadn't heard that. And they're like, they're in the soup. You know, they're young. I'm like, you know, you're in the soup with it. You're in it. You're in the, you're not on the sidelines. You're in the soup. So I think
you're an ingredient in the soup now. You're an ingredient. You're not the one stirring the pot. You are now an ingredient.
But sometimes when we're in the hot soup, it's hard to then share about it because I haven't figured it out. Like, I haven't figured it out. Next week I could be like, he's a highly sensitive child, and I don't know what I was talking about, the spectrum OCD and ABA therapy, but probably not. And that's hard to just own that there may be something, you know, that we're figuring out how to navigate. And I can be in that gray area and not know what it's going to look like and share that.
Yeah, I think I want to speak into listeners also. You know, I think so many of us, I refuse to label for forever and still, and yet, like you say, there is all these wonderful different therapies, different things that's available to us to acknowledge how to serve our children's highest good. I have so many friends and family with children on the spectrum. I find it fascinating.
And I do too. Like, why are there all these kids that are on the spectrum now? So I'm like, okay, that's interesting that there's this mass population with, like, spectrum, which you could say they're like these brilliant beings connected to something. So it could be this magical thing. We're just labeling it as,
right.
That's why I've probably been resistant, because I do think from a more conscious place, there's just,
but the piece that I want to say is that it's like you spoke into, okay, I did all these other pieces. I did the naturopathic and did the spiritual, conscious,
like hardcore. All of it. Big time.
So what I want to speak into, it's not that it didn't work. I want to speak into saying there's a foundation that also how we build our lives and how we lay things down, and speaking back into this pause time for myself. I'm speaking for myself too now. I need to obviously hear this, but really sitting in it and notice how we are building from the ground up. We cannot just suddenly put a roof on when there's no foundation. So there's all these pieces that do fit, because I have friends that only really acknowledged that there was something going on that needed to be acknowledged for what it is at the age of 7, 8. When it was very clear for a lot of people from the outside world that it was going to be a different journey from the moment that child was born. And other ones took it from the moment they were born into really acknowledging this. So there is no linear line. There's no right or wrong. There's nothing that is not good about the journey we are on. We're all building our foundation on different land in a different way.
And I do think it's important to acknowledge that I don't go, oh, I've tried all my hippie woo-woo naturopath, and that doesn't hold a space. But sometimes I need that in combination with the other piece. Like, I tried to get sober for years with amazing work, really deep work. And I did, like, AA, that traditional system worked for me. And I tried a lot of other spokes, hardcore, like you know,
Yes.
and so I still kept all those other spokes when I did AA. I didn't let those go and go, I'm just doing this now. And all the other spokes are gone and they were bad because they didn't work. So I don't want people to think that I'm like, I still believe in all of the spiritual naturopath. All of those hold a huge sacred space, but I might need to just have another spoke that I do in addition.
Yes.
You
You know
know,
what? Oh, I have a beautiful thought that just came through from metamorphosis, right? So my practice is metamorphosis. That's
yeah,
my
yeah,
healing path. And there's these two lines in it. There's the afferent and the efferent. And the afferent is this conscious part, the idea form of it, the spiritual, possibly. There's many names we can give it, but it just had the thought of, if we can acknowledge all of it, how beautiful it is. Because speaking about the spokes, speaking about
mhm,
you didn't let anything go, but what the AA gave you and what much of our system produces is the structure. But it's how we then fill that, and how do we move? We cannot just grip onto the structure and go forward we go, but it's you're using both of it. You're using the ideas and the formats that's more intangible. It's not something you can necessarily touch. It's ideas, it's things, ways of thinking. And then there is the practical.
yeah,
Then there is the medicine that is digestible, that
yeah.
then
But it wasn't
holds what
something I
was
could
created, the
figure
foundation of it.
out with all the other spokes. Like I needed to try that spoke that I didn't think was good. I don't know why I didn't think it was going to work, but I didn't want to try that spoke, you know.
Well,
I
it
think
wasn't, maybe not timing. Maybe it
yeah,
wasn't
and I think
timing.
sometimes it's that you didn't want, I knew that I had a pretty good.
I have a little
You have a little one saying something too. Oh, we're gonna pause her.
okay, I'm almost done and I'll take care of you. Okay, I'll be right there. Not just now, in a moment. Can you go get some socks on? I'll be right there. I'm just recording a Motherhood Channel.
Okay.
Girl, I'll be right there. So I have we can't send them to school with symptoms. So
Yeah,
mommy has a baby.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I
that's
mean,
what
I
that
think
was.
we can, I know. I think that we can wrap up, and I think it'd be interesting to see next week more about what's on the spoke, more about the path, and being able to be vulnerable and say like, hey, I might need this thing, you know, that I might not,
Yeah,
I didn't want to have to need. Like I didn't want to be an alcoholic. Like that's why I didn't want to go down that path, is I didn't want to have that label. And similar why I don't want to go down this other path. But the beauty was of just
I
like
love that.
walking down that path, I realized that
Yes,
my whole self isn't that. I had a wound from my genetic family line, had that wound, you know? So I acknowledged it and then it fell away. But my fear of so similar with him, I don't want to say bull, 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 label, 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 OCD spectrum, when there very well could just be that label, and leaning into it 1,000% could then make it fall away and get support with that. So yeah,
I
interesting.
think this is so valuable. I know that everyone listening knows somebody might have their own position or
Journey.
struggle or navigation that they have to do. I do.
Mhm.
I do. I've had it, I have a very spirited and connected human in my life
Yeah.
that I have to navigate the world around her. And, I know what it feels like to be careful with language and wanting to hold on to their unique beingness is
Mhm.
so huge for me personally. But
Totally. I
everyone's
agree.
different, sense of where they want to see their kids go and what they feel is, I know, whatever, success is different. So I think
Totally.
this is a topic that can go on for a while. And, we might even have to pull in some extra voices, some extra
Mhm.
um, experiences, because we all need support in this way right now, as the world as we know it, I really feel this strongly, is shifting and changing. And these kids
Totally.
are a part of it. They
Yeah.
are a part of it. I
No,
feel
totally.
this more and more every day. So yay, pivoting in this year 2023, in our language, in our foundation, in I call it the amalgamation, everything that we know and have gathered over the past 19, 20, 25 years. We have this opportunity to do something with it. And that's where I'm like, what am I doing with all of these pieces? What does the puzzle look like? It's funny, I'm building a puzzle right now. And it's one of the hardest puzzles I've ever done. I can't seem to make the pieces fit. And it's just such a beautiful mirror for where I am.
Totally.
Also.
And it will be it'll be a puzzle like you've never seen. And that's the problem, I think,
Yes.
because you haven't seen it before.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you.
Grateful for you too.
Here we go.
Okay.
Here we grow.
That was a lot of
you.
pieces for y'all. Just saying, that was a lot of pieces for everybody. So if you guys have questions or want support or other resources too, you know, let me know and let Quinn know. And we'd love to hear from you all. It's on Anchor, YouTube. We have an Instagram page, Spotify, Apple.
I think the way to reach out is on Instagram, the Motherhood Channel. That's a very personal way to reach out into the messaging system. So
probably
please reach out.
Yeah.
Let us know. Okay. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next
with
week.
More of the pieces of the spoke.
Yes. Of the puzzle for as we pivot in the world. Okay. Big love, you all.
I love you.